Hi everyone, Palmy here. Welcome back to my channel. Now if you're a beginner like me and you want to learn more about Daz Studio, then this is a channel for you. In today's video, we're going to learn how to create our own 3D tattoos in Daz Studio using the available texture maps that come with our figures. So let's get started right now. Right, so here we are in Daz Studio again, and today we're going to be looking at tattoos and how we can create tattoos. So the two specific tattoos we're going to be looking at exactly are these ones here in Photoshop. I've just got them here already. So we're going to do a tattoo that's black and white, which we're going to turn into green, and then we can give it that kind of color, that kind of greenish kind of hue that it has, and most tattoos do have. And then the other one is like a actual color tattoo that we have, and we're going to actually use this color tattoo right here. So let's move on back to Daz Studio. So first what I need to do is collect the maps again. This time I've got a different character with me. I've got my man Fergal with me. Fergal, he's Irish. He's Fergal. Fergal is our Irish name. So we've got my Irish character here, so to speak, and we need the maps. So this is very similar to what we did in the blood effects tutorial, which I call it blood effects now, not scar effects. I call it blood effects just because it's easy to search for in Daz Studio on the YouTube. So the blood effects tutorial is exactly the same thing as we get in the maps. So I'm going to do that right now, and what I'll do at the bottom here, I'll put a timestamp here if you want to skip to it, straight to the kind of to the editing part in Photoshop, so you can skip right there, because if you already know how to collect the maps, there's no point in you watching this, so you can always skip to that. So first of all, we need the maps, so I need to use my surface editor tool, and today what we're going to do actually is we're going to do two of them. We're going to do the torso and we're going to do the arms as well. So we're going to try and have a go at doing both, so it's going to be slightly a bit longer the tutorial, because we're going to be doing two tattoos, one on the arm and one on the torso, so on the chest here. So I'll get the torso first, so click on the torso here. I'm going to go to surfaces, make sure my character is selected. I'm going to go to surfaces here, click on that. And as you can see, it's already highlighted. Torso should be already highlighted on you as well. If not, just make sure you expand these sections here. So your character name, whatever your character name is, the surfaces for that character, and then torso should be in there. So let's go and get these maps. So just give me a second, it hasn't found them for some reason. There we go, on the torso. There we go. Okay, sometimes it doesn't find them for whatever reason, but now it has. That's a bit strange. So here we go. Right, so here's our maps, and what we're looking for. We need to click on the actual map. Whoops. Click on the map, click on browse, and I want to copy this. Right click, copy, and I want to go into Photoshop or whatever your photo editing software you have. I'm going to file, open, and I'm going to paste the directory into there and do open. So I need to go back to Daz Studio because I forgot to get the actual name. What is the name of this torso map? So it's called Fergal Diffuse _U2 V1. So I'm looking for that. So let's go back to over here. So Fergal _diffuse U2 V1, which should be this one. I'm going to preview this. That's the one. Excellent. So I need the diffuse, which is the base color. I need the bump version. So the bump one is here, which is the bump, which is the one that gives us the how much it raises or does not raise the actual features of the texture. And then we need the actual the specular. So we need the specular. We won't be using the normal map because we don't really need that for this one. So we need a specular, which is going to be U2 as well. There it is. So specular is obviously the shininess, where we want the shininess of the skin, the texture. So I'm going to open all those up. Control click on all these, make sure they're highlighted, and then do open images because I want them all. And then I'm just going to move them all into the diffuse here. So I'm going to right click, duplicate layer, and go and put it into diffuse. And I want the bump in the diffuse as well. There we go. Excellent. Now we can close these, so we don't need that anymore. No, we don't want to save. Close this as well. No, we definitely do not want to save. And there we go. So we've all got them here. I'm going to save them now. So I want to save this as a PSD. So file, save as. And I'm going to save it in, I've got my custom textures, got my tattoo folder. But what I'm going to do is create a new tattoo folder, because my other tattoo folder has got all the other testing ones that I've been doing for the past week or so, just to get this tutorial perfect. So there's my tattoo folder, and I'm just going to save it as that. That's fine. So I know that's the torso. Save. Excellent. Right, so one thing I realized that as I was doing this, it got very complicated when I was adding lots of images to do like the tattoos, and it got very complicated. So what I realized, the best thing to do is actually create groups. So first thing to do is actually click on the first layer, which is the base color, Control G to create a group and rename that layer. So double click there and just call it base, so we know it's base color. Same with that one, highlight that one, Control G, double click, and we're going to call that one spec because we know it's a specular. And then that one, highlight that one, Control G, and then I'm going to call that bump. So they're all in unique folders, so we don't really get overcomplicated and stuff goes a bit crazy basically. So let's get the other maps actually. We'll do that first as well. Let's go do that next. So let's go back to Daz Studio and let's get the arm. So with my surface tool still selected, I'll click on the arm. And there we go, the arms. And this one is called Virgil Diffuse UV V1. Okay, so file open. Should still remember the last one. No, we didn't remember it. That's fine. Let's go back and copy that. Browse, copy this. So we are looking for, I don't need to come back here, U4 V1. Right. So file open. I want to paste that into here again. Click open and let's go find those. So U4 V1. So it's this one here. Just gonna double check previous. Excellent. So again, we want the bump, we want the diffuse, and we want the specular again. Open all those. Control click on that as well and click on open images here at the bottom. And again, we're going to move them into the diffuse as my main one. So I'm going to right click, duplicate layer and move it into diffuse U4V1, and same with this one. The bump, right click and duplicate layer and move that into diffuse U4V1. So let's close these. No, I don't want to save, and no to that as well. Excellent. So again, I'm going to do the same thing with this. I'm going to click on these and do Control G and just tell it it's the base. I think it's a good idea to do this, especially when you're testing. Control G. When you're testing the lots of different tattoos or arts that you find on the internet, and you just want to play around and just want to try your own unique art and see what it looks like, tattoos that you can get from the internet, and then try them, apply them. Definitely a good idea to do this, because I realized that when I didn't do this, things were all over the place and I got very confused as to what was being applied and what was not being applied. So again, we're going to save this file, save as, not in that folder, in my custom textures, tattoo 2, and my PSD is in there. Great. Okay, so let's begin with the torso first. So I do not want to start with the bump, I want to start with the base first. So the torso was this one here, which is this crazy tattoo that I found that somebody made. So these, obviously, these are not for commercial use. These are all for personal use. So just always check that before you actually go and download these. Any like tattoo or anything you download from Google Images, it's probably copyright protected, and it's mostly for personal use, just for you to try things out, just to get you kind of hone your skills, so to speak. And then once you've honed your skills and you want to use something that you want to, that someone's made, you really should get permission from them, because you wouldn't like if somebody took your work and then sold it on as theirs and made money off your work. That's not really best practice. So just make sure you check that as well when you're going to download these. These are all for personal use. So again, I want to right click, I want to duplicate layer, and I just want to put it into my U2V1 PSD. So it should be in there now. There it is. Excellent. So I want to put that layer, drag it into the base. So that's where it belongs. Cool. Okay. So let's put this in the right place. So as you can see here with the torso, the way it works is these edges here wrap to the back. So this actually wraps around the back. So this is the front here. As you can see, you got the belly button, bit of hair there as well. And here we got the collarbone, you can see. So I want mine roughly to be, so Control T, I want to transform it, I want to just resize things. So I want it a bit bigger actually, and then I'm going to move it, click and drag, and I probably want it somewhere around here will be fine. Yeah, that'll be fine. Yeah, that'll be fine. So that's fine. Okay, so I'm just going to zoom in so you can get a better look. There we go. So there's our tattoo, so to speak. It's not quite done yet. So the next thing we need to do is actually add our scarring along the edges here. So scarring to make it look like it's like newly done, because when you do a tattoo, the scarring is on there. So to do that, we go to the FX here, and we're going to add a bevel and emboss again. Now you'll see I've already done this, like it's already remembered the settings from before, but I'll go through it with you anyway. So the one you want, you got basically two options. You can have emboss or pillow emboss. It's kind of up to you how you want, which one you want. I prefer emboss because it gives you a bit more better effect when you put it into Daz Studio. And then the next thing you want to do is the depth. So how much depth do you want? So as you can see, when I increase the depth, the actual scarring gets more. Okay, and you don't want to go like crazy with it. Scarring should only be a little bit, probably around about that much is fine. And then the direction, up or down. So at the moment it's up. If I do down, it looks slightly different in terms of the scarring is more on this side. And then when you do up, you can see the scarring is a bit more even. Okay, so that's the reason why I've got up here. And then you got size. Obviously, the more you do it, the bigger size you get, and this obviously goes into the actual kind of like tattoo. So you don't want to go too big. You don't want to go too crazy. So I think something like this is okay, roughly. I mean, it doesn't have to be perfect scarring, because in reality, you want to get scarring everywhere. You'll get in particular sections on the tattoo. So I mean, it doesn't have to be perfect, as we said. So in terms of the colors, what you want is over here. So we've got the colors. So this all is fine. This, you don't really need to touch the angle or anything. It doesn't really make much difference. What I would suggest is the actual highlight mode and shadow mode, set them both to multiply, just because you want a darker color. And the color you want is kind of like the skin color, but more darker. So here, this is the actual color I use for this skin tone. So obviously, if you had like a darker skin tone, you would have to change, go to a darker color of that skin tone. So if it was, say, brownish skin tone, maybe golden brown or dark brown skin tone, you would have to go slightly darker, maybe black maybe, or something just slightly darker than the skin tone, so you can get that scarring effect as it would happen with a real tattoo. So that's what I've done here. So that's what I've done to both. As you can see, if I put it down, if I put it to normal, actually you'll see the difference. It kind of goes too pinky like that, which is why I did multiply, which gives you that kind of scarring here. And then obviously the opacity you can play with, how much you want. I've done 100%, I've just gone 100% because I think that's the one that looks best. But that's up to you to decide how you want to do it. So we click OK. Great, happy with that. Now another thing I found out is with the tattoos is when I've done this actually in Daz Studio, this is really bright for some reason, and I think most tattoos aren't really bright, as in terms of they're not, even though they have lots of colors on them, the whites are not very white, if you know what I mean. It's not like super bright. So what I did here was I did brightness and contrast and change the contrast. So I'll go to the adjustment layers here, I do brightness contrast and I'll clip it. So when we clip it here, it will just only affect this layer, but below it won't affect the actual base, this base color map here. And then what I'm going to do is increase the brightness, the contrast here. So I'm going to increase the contrast, and then I'll bring the brightness down. There we go. Something like that, because most tattoos are not like super bright like this. You know, very rare to find tattoos that are super bright like this. They're mostly colors are very desaturated. So they're not like super bright, so you want to desaturate the colors, which means increase the contrast, reduce the brightness basically. So we want something like this is fine. So you want to look for something like this, see where it's the colors are very desaturated, but not so much where it's kind of like black and white, because we still want the color. So I'm happy with that. Cool. So I'm going to save that. So I'm going to go to File, Save As, and as a JPEG, because the original format was JPEG. So remember, whatever the original format is, always save in that format. So if it was a PNG, save it as a PNG. In this case, it was a JPEG, so JPEG. And I'm just going to call it B1 because I know it's base. Or I'll call it base 1 then. Base 1. Base 1. The reason why I call it base 1 is because if I have extra... if I have to come back and then change it again, I'll call the next one base 2 or base 3. It's just that when you go into Daz Studio and you save, when you save over, say, base 1 with your changes, it doesn't change. It doesn't change on the actual viewport. Nothing will change on the viewport. It will only change when you do the rendering, when you do the iRay preview. So that's why you should always save it as a separate file. So, you know, base color 1, base color 2, base color 3, just so it shows up in the actual viewport properly. I think it's some sort of actual bug in the actual Daz Studio. I don't know how they haven't fixed it or whether they just don't see it as a bug, but I think it's a bug. But just to let you know that, make sure you just save it as, you know, base color 1, base color 2. So when you make the changes, it will show up on the viewport. Right, so we're happy with that. Great, now we're going to do the specular. So what I need to do first is deselect that. I need a copy of this one here actually. So I need to do, I don't actually need the copy with the bright. Actually, I do need the copy with the brightness. So actually, yeah. So for this, I need to do Control, Alt, Shift, and E, which is a combined image of everything of these two. So just basically a combination of these images, these two options in one here, and that's going to go into the specular. So move that into there, and now we're done with the base, so we can close that. Excellent. Let's go to here now. So here we are in this one. So the first thing we need to do with the specular is we need to desaturate it. So go to Image here. We go to Adjustments and we go to Desaturate. Right. So this is where it's slightly different from the actual blood effects tutorial. With this one, the actual tattoos, as you see in real life, tattoos are very well like blended into the skin. So we want to blend it into the skin. And the way we do that is we need to turn the opacity down. So we turn the opacity down, and in far as the opacity, we don't want it like, say like 70%, 80%. We want it pretty low, so something like 30, you know, to the point where you can almost just see it. You don't want to like have it like too much like that. That's too much actually. So you want to have something like this, where it's very well blended into the kind of skin, so to speak, into the specular map. So something like 30% is okay. This will obviously change depending on what kind of tattoo you use or what kind of image file you use. The opacity will change. So that's the variable there, where you would have to use your best guess and you're trying to basically blend it into the specular. We don't really want our tattoo to be super shiny. We want it to be blended into the skin. Okay, now with this, obviously we can use again a brightness contrast adjustment layer again, and I'll clip it again because I only wanted to affect this part, the actual tattoo. And with this one, what we're trying to do is we are just trying to make it a little bit, trying to just make it more blended into the skin. So let's see what we can do with the contrast. Probably not that much contrast. There we go. So that doesn't look, see, we don't really even have to do that much with the actual brightness contrast. We just need to do a little bit. So something like that is pretty well blended into the skin, as you can see, into the specular map rather. These blacks are almost similar to this color of black here. They don't have to be exactly, they just need to be blended in so it doesn't stick out, because it's not supposed to be super shiny, because tattoos aren't super shiny basically. So happy with that. I'm going to save that as well now. So File, Save As. Save it as a JPEG, and we're going to call this Spec 1. And we leave the options as they are. They're all fine. And click OK. So again, I want to duplicate this layer though. So I want to do Control and J, and this layer is going to go into the bump. And now we're done with the specular map. So we're going to close that and the bump. So let's turn on the bump. With the bump, what I want to do, again, we got the opacity. I need to put it back to 100% for the bump because we want normal opacity. Right, so this is where we kind of determine how much of the bump we want, how much raising or lowering we want. So again, brightness contrast, adjustment layer again, and we're going to use the clipping mask again. So what we're trying to do here is we are trying to reduce, so we're trying to, increase the contrast, because we're trying to make this kind of like 3D tattoo effect. And you realize that the contrast here, to make it appear 3D, where it's kind of like tearing out the skin, we need the blacks to be quite dark basically. So that's what, because it's going to go inside the skin. Remember black goes in and white comes out. So black goes goes inside, makes it deeper, for example, and then white makes it, raises it. So we don't really want brightness as such. But we don't want super brightness like this. We actually want something like this. Again, this varies on what tattoo or image you're using. As you'll see when we do the actual other tattoo, this one here, this will vary. When I do it, you'll see the difference. So let's go back to the torso. Right, that looks okay for now. Obviously, we can always change the settings in Daz Studio with the bump, so that looks okay from what I remember. So file, save as. Let's go to a JPEG and save that as bump 1. Right, so we've done that, great. So we finished with that one. So let's go and actually do the arm tattoo, which is this one here. So before I move this over, what I want to do is, because it's a black and white image, I'm going to actually colorize it now. So the way we colorize an image that's black and white is we need to go to image here first, and then we go to mode, and we just want, it's currently on grayscale, we just need to change to RGB. Okay, and then we need to do adjustment layer, and we need to do hue saturation. That's the one I'm looking for, and we don't want to use a clipping mask because there's nothing else it's going to affect. So this is where we do actual coloring, and we want it sort of like greenish color, but very, very faint green color. So we need to click this colorize button here, and then we need to bring this slider down, and we want it green. And you won't see anything at the moment because I need to bring the lightness up. Then you'll see the green up here. So I want very, very subtle green that you normally see with the tattoo. So I might need to put the saturation up a bit. So again, this is up to you, your personal taste, how much of the saturation and all these sliders you want to use. It really depends. So I think that's about it. It's very subtle dark green is what I'm looking for. That looks okay. Excellent. Okay, happy with that. So Control, Alt, Shift and E again. There's my actual coloring there, which is great. So again, right click, I'm going to duplicate this layer. I'm going to move it into the other one, which was the U4V1, which was the actual arm, the arm textures. So in we go here. There we go. And I didn't want it in the bump, Specular, I wanted it in the base. Right, because the arm is the other way around, we need to obviously move our, just zoom in a bit, we need to turn this around. So I need to do Control T, and I'm just going to keep Shift pressed, and then it's going to go in, keep my left mouse button pressed, and I'm going to drag around. It's going to change in 15-degree increments until we get it all the way around. There we go. And I'm going to make this smaller. Now this is a bit of a guesswork here. So this, as you can see, this is the elbow here. It's quite easy to see there. And this is the actual kind of like, you can see the wrapping here. So this actually wraps around. So this is the elbow here. So where we want to put it is somewhere around, oh, didn't want to move that. So where we want to move it is somewhere around kind of like here. Somewhere around here. It might be, I might be slightly off. I don't know. But that's something you have to play around with in terms of the positionings. I think it's about here. Okay. From what I remember. Okay. Okay, so you're probably wondering, how do I know which arm is which? So in this case, this is the left arm and this is the right arm. How do I know this? Because this is through trial and error or trial improvement, what you want to call it. I've put it on there and realized that's the left. So when you see a map like this, it's always the left arm here first and then this is the right arm. Okay, so I'm happy with that position there. So what we need to do now is again add the scarring. So I'm just going to zoom in here so you get a better look. Okay, so we're going to add the scarring. So again, FX, and then we're going to go to bevel and emboss. And that scarring setting, so this is the same scarring setting we had in the previous, so it remembers the settings, so I don't really want to go too overboard with it. So something like that is okay. Click OK, that's pretty good. Okay, so with this one as well, what I want to do is to make it appear more like indented, because it's just, at the moment there's no like indentations on here, because it won't look very good at the moment, the indentations around here, around the edges here, to give it that kind of like 3D effect and everything, to make it look like the actual like a needle has gone through and made the kind of like the scarring, and then you've got the kind of raised bump. Basically we need to actually add an emboss around the edges. So for this we need to do Control J because I want to duplicate, and then what I want to do is this layer here, the duplicate, I want to put it underneath, and I need to go back to bevel and emboss, and here this is where I actually want to change the highlight mode to white, and I want to change the shadow mode to black, And then I want to just change the actual depth, and I want to change the size. So I want it to just, as you can see, I don't know if you can see, it's kind of like got a bit of an outline here. That's exactly what I'm looking for. So it's very, very subtle. It's not like a mega change. So it's like a very subtle change here, just there. Something like that is pretty good, yeah. So you can see like it's raised now a bit here around the edges, which is exactly what we're looking for. So you can use this with other, this technique with other. We just want to add a bit of black there just to raise it a bit. So we click OK. So if you just come back out to fit screen, that's fine. So that looks pretty good from far away. As you can see, we've got a nice effect there. So that gives the effect of like it's just been, someone's just got a tattoo now and the scarring's coming around the edges, and you know, it's kind of basically he's healing around the edges. So very happy with that. So file, save as a JPEG, and we need to save it as base 1. Okay, so again we need to deselect this, and I need to do Control Alt Shift and E because I want a combined image of all these two settings basically combined together, and this is going to go into my specular, and we're finished with the base for now. So specular, again with the specular, we want to reduce the opacity. Sorry, with the specular we need to image desaturate. So image adjustments desaturate. We don't want color. Where are we? Desaturate. There we are. Okay, and now I want to turn the opacity down. So you'll see that the opacity for this is slightly different. I'll zoom in here. With the other one, I believe the opacity was pretty high, so it was pretty low. Sorry, 30%. This one here is going to be a bit higher up because obviously it's a different tattoo, so you can see the difference. We just want it to blend in there, so something like that looks okay. Again, we got to add the brightness and contrast with the clipping mask here, and then we can adjust the brightness and contrast. I don't want it super bright. There we go. Something like that is okay. Yep. Okay, so it's pretty well blended in there. We could probably turn the opacity. I mean, you could play around the opacity as much as you want, but you don't want it something like that where it's not, you can't see it. You want to have enough where there is a bit there. So something like, even, what are we on? 35% is probably too less. I would probably go something like, yeah, 45 is pretty good. So again, you're just trying to blend it in as best as you can. It doesn't need to be perfect, but it needs to be blended in. So file, save as JPEG, and that is going to be a spec 1. And finally we're on to the bump. So I just want to copy this and I just want to put it into the bump. So Control J for that one. Let's open the bump. Again, brightness, contrast. This is what we're adjustment layer. We're going to do the clipping mask. So this is where, oh sorry, we need to make sure that the opacity is back to 100%. That's a good idea. And here we go, we want the contrast. So we don't want to go too crazy because the bump will go crazy. So that's probably too much. Something like this is fine. I think something like that is fine. There we go. That looks pretty good. Happy with that. So file, save as. So again, you have to really play around the settings, and there's no like one setting I can give you that's like, here, use this setting and it will work for everything. It doesn't work like that. As you well know, the settings are all based on individually depending on what image you use. So bump 1 for this. Okay, so we've done kind of like what could be the boring stuff. Let's go to Daz Studio. Let's see if our work's paid off. So here we are in Daz Studio. So what we'll do first is we'll do the arm first because I'm not too sure if the placement's correct. So hopefully, if I've done it correctly, it should be somewhere around here, hopefully. We'll see. So again, we just got to replace the map. So we click on here, on the actual map, we click on Browse. I'm going to go to my Textures folder and then Tattoo 2. And the one I want for the arm was U4V1, so the base. I'm going to do the base again. Go back to texture map, go back to tattoo 2, space again. We're just gonna replace all the maps like we did with the blood tutorial. Exactly the same thing. Here we're doing nothing new that I haven't covered before. And specular, do the specular, the bump map. So the bump map. Need the bump map. So where is it? There it is. Bump. Excellent. So let's have a look how that looks. Just zoom in here. Okay, how does that look? Let's get some decent lighting in here, because obviously with lighting, everything makes a difference with decent lighting. So let me just find the dome rotation so we get some decent lighting. There we go. Okay, so that actually doesn't look too bad. Quite happy with that. So what we can do now is add some displacement. So displacement will give it a slight bit of displacement on there, which is a good idea. So again, displacement strength here. We're going to click on the button here. We're going to go and choose the actual bump map. There it is. And again, we want low displacement, because if you have high displacement, you'll see that it just goes a bit crazy. If I go like super crazy and say choose 2, then the displacement will go crazy. So we don't want to really go crazy with displacement. We just want something like 0.2, 0.3, something like that. Maybe even 0.5 if you want to, just to show the difference. So if you zoom in here, you should see some difference. Let me just click this button here. You can see how good it looks up close. So you can see there's some scarring here, and we got a displacement working here. With the displacement, you can choose minimum displacement, so you can actually choose a threshold, so to speak. So the one that was given to me in tutorial that works very well is minus 0.10, and the maximum displacement is 0.10. So it's kind of like your threshold. So in between those two values, you'll get a displacement of that. And then obviously we can use a sub displacement level again, sub D. So 2 or 3 is fine if you really want to use it. You don't have to. And that'll just smoothen everything out. So here you can see the tattoo looks really good. Looks pretty realistic to me. Really happy with that. So if you did one like far away, for example, that looks pretty realistic. So let's see what the actual torso one looks like. So again, let me just move the lighting around, because lighting makes a difference. Let me just get some lighting here. There we go. Obviously, I would never choose lighting like this way straight on, because that's the worst lighting ever. You want to choose lighting at an angle to show some shadows. So something like this, where you got some shadows, which is the best way to do it. But we'll just do it like this for now, and then we can see what the tattoo looks like. So torso. Let's go up here. So let's replace these maps. So again, I'm clicking on the maps, base color. I'm just going to replace the maps. Go to texture, go to tattoo, base 1, and again base 1 again. Should be here somewhere. Base 1, there it is. There we go. And the actual specular map, custom textures, specular map. Where are you? There it is. And let's add the bump. Browse, go to my folder again. So as you can see, we do end up spending a lot of time outside of Daz Studio in more of our photo editing software. I mean, that's what you're going to end up doing anyway. So let's have a look at this. What does this look like? Have I got the effect that I wanted? Yes or no? Just make sure everything is correct. The bump is right there. That's the correct one there as well. That's the correct one there as well. Okay. So this looks pretty good. You can see the kind of scarring here on the edge. So it looks like it's being dug in by the actual the ink pen or the tattoo pen, whatever it's called. I'm not even sure what the. You can see actually here as well. See, it's blended in. You can see the actual. It's been blended into the skin here. So this actually may look a bit too bright. You may actually have to go in and just desaturate it a bit more just to get the proper effect. Again, we can add the displacement as well. So we can add the displacement here, and we can do the same settings. 0.2, 0.3 is fine, and the same settings here as well. Minus 0.1. You can play with these settings if you wish to do so. They're not set in stone. It's just something that I use now and again. I don't really change the settings that much. And as you can see, we're not actually using a normal map. There's no need to use a normal map because we don't need that kind of raising too much of the tattoo. Really, it just needs to be slight raising, which the bump will be good enough to do anyway. I mean, you can use a normal map, so we can use that website we used last time where we could put the actual base color map in and then get the normal map out, and then you could put it in here to get the actual normal map if you wish to do so. I don't think it's necessary in this case because we don't want the tattoo being raised so much that it's literally coming off the skin, so to speak. So in this case here, let's change the lighting because the lighting obviously affects the way it looks. So let's use our dome rotation. Just using sun sky here, it's just a lot quicker than using a HDRI map. And obviously using perspective view is not a good idea because we're using the headlamp on the camera. So let me just create a new camera actually. Should have done that to begin with. My fault. Let's got a camera here. And let's make sure the actual headlamp is off. Yeah, auto headlamp set to never. Okay, cool. So let's go back to the environment. Let me just go and change the dome rotation here to give it a bit of a effect here. So let's have a look. Let's change the SSS time so it's slightly different. Okay. Let's zoom in now. So I would increase the sun disk intensity. It's probably not bright enough, so probably 2 actually for that. So there we go. That looks pretty good. So we can see some engraving here. So we got the scarring here. Looks really good. The scarring looks pretty good here. We got the engraving, so it looks like it's raised. So if you actually Google 3D tattoos, this is what they kind of look like, where it looks like it's actually raised, and it's giving that effect. And also we've got the scarring here around the skin, which makes it look like it's a brand new tattoo. Okay, let's have a look at the other one. So this is pretty good. I'm really happy with this tattoo. I think it probably needs desaturating a bit more, the color. So if I was to, for example, go back into Photoshop, and let's go back to that one there, this one here, and I go back to the actual, let's just make these folders smaller. There we go, the base. So for this one here, I would actually desaturate that even more. So I would literally get the brightness and reduce it even more to the point where it's very dark like this almost. And the contrast is fine, it's just the brightness. There we go. So I'm just going to show you now, when I save over this, what happens in DAZSTUDIO. It won't actually update. So if we just get off this texture mode and then go back into Photoshop, if I go to File, Save As, and save over that original base map, base color map, which was this one here. No, it wasn't. It was, yeah, it was U2V41. Yeah. Getting confused now. Should have actually saved them, named them properly, but that's what you get. So the top one here, base color. Yes, I'm sure. Want to save over. Oh, I didn't actually select that. There we go. Sorry about that. File, save as. Good idea to always select the texture map. There we go. Base, yes. Okay, so let's go back to DAZSTUDIO. You'll see that it hasn't been updated. It doesn't update. So that's why you should always change it. And then when I actually do the RA preview, it will change it now. It will actually update the file. Look for the updated file and then it will do the preview. So let's give it a second and there we go. So I think this one actually looks a lot better now, a bit more darker. And it actually looks more menacing now with the actual light coming here, which is kind of cool. So yeah, so I think this looks a lot better because you don't see many tattoos that are like super bright colors. They're very desaturated. This looks really good now. This looks like a proper tattoo from far away. I mean, this looks really good actually. And if you have a look at the other one, if you go around, that looks very realistic as well. So that's how you can create 3D tattoos in DAZSTUDIO using your favorite photo editing software. In my case, that's Photoshop. I've also done a bit of homework for you and collected some images that you can use as tattoos. So link in the description box down below for that as well. Now, if you're a beginner and you're struggling with lighting in DAZSTUDIO, I highly recommend you download my lighting guide. Link in the description box down below for that as well. Covers all the different types of lighting as well. So it's going to help you create those high quality renders in DAZSTUDIO. Now, if you like this video, if you found value in it, hit that like button. Make sure to leave a comment down below as well. And make sure to hit that subscribe button and the notification bell because you want to level up and create those high quality images. So make sure you hit the subscribe button and make sure you hit that notification bell as well. And I'll see you in next week's video.